This work critically reflects and reports our journey to developing an alternative form of research outcome for our participants. This research took place in Western Canada on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples that include the Kwantlen, Musqueam, and Stolo nations. In the summer of 2019, we performed a field study with 9 people with blindness to understand how people with blindness capture, revisit, and share their life experiences. Since the interviews are one-on-one, nearly all participants wanted to know what others have shared. However, the pandemic happened and we were not able to host any in-person or group session to describe and deliver what we have found. We did not want to send an academic paper that we published, which is not something that was written for our participants. As a design research team, we sought a better way to deliver the research findings. Participatory design means building reciprocal relationships with participants and opening up conversations with larger communities. The traditions of participatory design and co-design aim to involve people as core stakeholders in and across design processes. Yet, it is an open challenge to make sure results are sustained and participants are valued for their involvement as the projects come to an end. How to translate theoretical, intangible knowledge into a form that can engage both participants and the general population remains a challenge. Building on our prior research, we faced the same challenge. From the interviews, we learned that the audio format was preferred over written words, hearing each other's voices, instead of researchers telling stories on their behalf. We ended up creating an hour-long audio documentary to translate the research publication for our participants. Our paper presents the critical reflections on producing this alternative form of knowledge and on the process of designing towards more engaging and accessible knowledge for the populations we work with. Theoretical backgrounds in decolonial theories and sound studies have greatly inspired us. Our goals align with the decolonial recognition that written knowledge is not enough, so that research must be returned in a way that supports participants and invites their responses. We draw inspiration from concepts of storywork and story worlds, where the verbal stories and sonic worlds created through the voices of participants. This challenges the listener by situating them in a space to consider a different worldview. In our case, sonic production is chosen to maintain reciprocal and effective responses while building ethical relationships through stories told in participants' own voices. Also, we aim to explore how a decolonial approach with storytelling could create a space for conversation between the academic and scientific communities, our participants, and the general public. This audio documentary is part of an ongoing multi-year participatory design research project on the experience of reminiscence for people with blindness. Yet, it is a collective decision among all parties to not involve participants directly in the production of this audio documentary. However, upon completing the final draft of the documentary, we sent the audio file to participants to confirm that they are fully comfortable with what is being shared. As a result, the documentary serves to extend the conversation and to support the next step of research within our collective longer-term project. Next, we unpack our reflections on the making of the audio documentary in 3 areas: composition, production, and publishing. In this video presentation, I will highlight the key points in composition and production. Written accounts of participants' narratives are often unable to capture the emotional impacts and the pauses that contain stories in and of themselves. One of the design goals prior to recording was to offer a sonic space that brings the listener into this reflective, asynchronous conversation. To create this space, we implemented 3 types of reflective questions and communicative silence. Correlating questions ask the listener to think back on their own experiences in connection to what's presented in the documentary, such as, what are your own ways of using digital possessions to look back on your past? Expanding questions encourage the listener to think further to consider new insights building on participants' stories and our research findings. What are other ways that we could create a moment of collaborative reminiscence? Envisioning questions invite the listener to imagine experiencing given situations. Suppose you're able to create a figure that represents a specific moment from the past. What moments would you create? As these questions are asked, silence is used as a gesture where the listener, the participants in the documentary, and the listener's inner self meet together. When producing the audio documentary, we aim to emphasize the emotional textures within our participants' voices to help the listener immerse in the stories. Building on the concepts of storywork and story worlds, we developed the soundscapes of our participants' story worlds. These sonic cues transport the listener to the locations and memories in the story. Carefully chosen sounds are layered to highlight the characteristics of stories and descriptions. For example, when Janet describes a boating trip, the listener will hear the sound of water and boat engines in the background. Overall, sharing the stories through sonic interventions extends our decolonial approach, maintaining the stories within participants' shared story worlds. Performing research with a specific community requires researchers to be highly attuned to the needs and preferences of that community. Our research participants desired knowledge transfer in a form that they could access, absorb, and reflect. Overall, participants' preferences and the characteristics of collected data are the factors that guided us to arrive at the final form of audio documentary. Their desires, a reciprocal creation, and the distribution of the audio documentary altogether highlight how creating such artifacts can be useful to keep the longer-term participatory processes going, even if not everyone is involved. This approach also offers an additional benefit of engaging interviewees to listen to the other interviews in a structured way, and to relate or reference them when being involved in the future participatory design work. Our audio documentary not only serves as a gift for participation, but also acts as a genuine invite to our future research. We hope our approach inspires future research into how academic knowledge produced in the HCI and design communities can be more approachable and delivered to the broader public, especially research participants and their relevant community members. Thank you.